broadcasts outside British law off the coast of Essex. According to his book, The Lid Off Laser 558, Paul Rustling had worked for the station since Laser was just an idea. Earlier this year, he finally fell out with Laser's American management. Now he runs a pub in Whitstable. He claimed that Laser management still owe him money.
Soon after they came on air, it was made clear to me by one or two people on the project that they intended to withhold the money, for what reason I don't know. And I decided to publish a book about my time with the project and how the station actually came on the air. So I brought the book out, and a couple of days after the book was published, a mysterious fire enveloped my pub in flames. The police are sure it's arson. I'm sure it's arson. Well, the only reason anyone sets fire to something, if you follow it logically, is that they have a grudge against the owner of the property.
In fact, police have told us that they are treating the case as arson, but they don't think anyone from Laser was responsible for the fire. But the result was, according to Paul Rustling, that someone soon realised that a man with a grudge can be used, and that's when a plot was apparently hatched to seize Laser Radio.
I was approached by someone who said, you've been aggrieved by Laser. This was about 2 weeks after the fire. And I said, well, it certainly looks that way. I can't think of anyone else it could be that's responsible. And they asked for certain information, and I didn't want to give the information. It was information that I was privileged to, and if someone was going to make use of it to their own ends, then I wanted to be reasonably rewarded for that information. And I suggested I take part in the operation.
At this stage, Mr. Rustling says that he was contacted by a man called Eddie Blackwell. Mr. Blackwell happens to be the managing director of a local radio station in Southend called Essex Radio. Essex Radio happens to have been one of the stations worst hit by the success of Laser Radio's broadcasting. Mr. Blackwell denies he set the meeting up. He says Paul Rustling called him. Whoever arranged the meeting, parts of the conversation when they met on September the 28th can only be described as astonishing. It included discussions of a plan to hijack Laser Radio, effectively piracy on the high seas. We know the conversation took place because the evidence is on tape.
Basically, what we intend to do is go out there and confine the crew to their quarters temporarily, whilst we remove certain important items from the ship, which will incapacitate it.
That was the voice of Paul Rustling. Eddie Blackwell, for his part, was quite clear that he could not do anything illegal.
I can't pay you or give you any money to take the thing off air, but I mean, I'd be delighted to sort of give you a nice dinner afterwards, but I can't, because if I did it and it came out, I'll tell you what the problem is. I mean, I'd dearly love, for the industry's sake, to remove Laser.
However, later in the conversation, the two men discussed details of a different plan to cut the Laser Radio ship's anchor chain and tow the ship into British territorial waters, where they thought it could be prosecuted under British law. In fact, Paul Rustling has shown us the hidden wharf where the hijacked ship would have been berthed. Again, despite the fact that Mr. Blackwell insists he could not be seen to be doing anything illegal, a discussion about payment took place.
What kind of money are you looking for?
Well, we're not talking about doing a Mickey Mouse operation. We're talking about paying the people who do it £500 a man. And we're talking about 8 to 10 people.
Talking about 4,000 or 5,000?
Yeah. We're probably talking about a little bit more than that, actually.
Do you...
Because we're not going to compromise. This is going to happen, and it's going to happen and be done on 1 attempt.
Having had a discussion about the cost, there was also a discussion about methods of payment.
And I mean, I would believe that you had a hand in it. It might be possible at some time for someone to pay somebody not connected with you something. But how that would be achieved, I don't know. It'd have to be out of this country. I mean, but I'm not negotiating.
Well,
what I'm saying,
I've got a bank account in Switzerland and one in New York.
All right. Well, look.
In his interview with us, Mr. Blackwell maintained that no payment ever took place, nor was any ever likely to. His words to us were, he's never had a penny, and he's never going to get a penny. So, was there a plot to take out Laser? Paul Rustling says he was involved in a plot. Eddie Blackwell says he himself wasn't involved in a plot. But either way, two questions may now have formed in your mind. 1.
Who made the tape recording in the first place?
We did.
And 2. Why then is the managing director of a respected independent local radio station listening to these proposals in his shareholders' boardroom? Eddie Blackwell says he has his own motives for bugging the conversation.
Yes, the background, of course, is the one that a member of my staff had been named by this man as having given him aid and assistance. Or if not named in person, the indication was so clear as to not be anyone else.
Eddie Blackwell suspected that a member of his own staff had been moonlighting for Laser Radio. He was determined to find out the name of this man, and this is why, he says, he played along with Rusling's proposals.
And I had a unique opportunity to allow this man who had written a book and was absolutely sure that the person he'd kind of leaned on in the book was in fact guilty of the things that he claimed. I therefore had a duty to find out just how involved my colleague had been.
So, the next question is, how did the tape escape from Blackwell's office? Blackwell says that another member of his staff must have stolen a copy. Another intriguing aspect of the whole affair is that the tape has clearly been doctored, in other words, edited. What's missing is all reference to the man Mr. Blackwell suspects, and Rusling's book suggests, was illegally connected with Laser Radio. The person who doctored the tape can scarcely be a friend of either Mr. Blackwell or Mr. Rusling, because the doctored tape could appear to incriminate both of them. There is one more bizarre twist to our story. The man whose name has been removed from the doctored version and who has told us he is not guilty of working for Laser says he was himself approached, that someone played him the tape and attempted to blackmail him for £10,000. He refused to pay. So, the story so far contains allegations, counter-allegations of plots, counterplots, arson, piracy, and now blackmail. Whatever else was discussed between Blackwell and Rusling, the meeting ended with no decision being taken about what to do about Laser Radio.
I'm very anxious not to let your enthusiasm for the termination of this project wane. I mean, I'd like to encourage you, but I can't encourage you in an illegal way.
So when you say at the end of this particular extract of the tape that, what is it, I'm very anxious not to let your enthusiasm for the termination of this project wane.
Yes, said with a smile, wasn't it? Of course. Do you know, you realise why he came to me? I assume that what he said was true. He came to me because he wanted to cause trouble for the company who owed him money.
So, what do the police make of all this? After the meeting, Mr. Blackwell told the director of a group of leading figures which controls the local radio network about the conversation. And he gave them the name of the member of his staff whom he'd suspected. But did he tell the police about a possible act of piracy?
Not that particular set of pieces of information, because I felt that we ought to do this as an industry. In other words, if I find out something which I think other people don't know, I then convey that to my colleagues within council and, of course, to the director of the association, Brian West. That I have done.
The director of the Association of Independent Radio Contractors confirmed that. But he didn't pass the information on to the police either. He says that he didn't take Mr. Rusling's plans seriously and is satisfied Mr. Blackwell acted in what he describes as the best motives. Roy Lindau, Laser's American boss, has told us that since he's heard the tape, he's taken steps to protect his ship. So, is Laser safe?
Is this organisation still in existence then?
Which organisation?
Oh.
The original contacts. Oh, yeah. Mm.
And they still want to get Laser into British waters and incapacitate it?
They want Laser off the air. I've only had one contact from the people who were involved, and from what I gather on that, they found a different way to hit Laser. But I understand those people are still going to finish the Laser operation.
Today, Laser's management have handed a transcript of the tapes over to the Director of Public Prosecutions.
Well, the joyous Christmas spirit doesn't seem much in